Breaking Brown family. This is Yvette Carnell coming to you today. Now, it is Monday, December the 12th, and what I want to talk to you about is something that we have been talking to each other about for some time. I wasn't going to do another show on black wealth for a while, but after I posted my video on Professor William Darity, Antonio Moore, who you all know, who's called in here, we've done videos together, he interviewed him. And so we're going to have a conversation about that interview. I have some clips that we're going to discuss. But one thing I want to say before we even get to that point, I remember a while ago, Ta-Nehisi Coates had, he had, what do you call it? His essay on reparations, the case for reparations. That was his essay. And when he had that essay, I remember, I thought it was an expertly written essay. And I remember the reaction that he got, because many people felt that for the first time in a very, very, very long time, someone had made the case for reparations. Somebody had made a salient case for reparations. And I think he absolutely did that. But the more and more that I learn about wealth and about what it takes, where wealth came from, where white wealth came from, why black people don't have wealth, the more and more I understand that on certain aspects, in certain ways, he actually didn't go far enough in terms of surgically kind of dealing with the issue of reparations. So I think, we can't just depend on one person to do something. I think this has to be a joint effort. So I think we have to now, because this is our ball to pick up now. Because in a plutocracy, and that's what we live in right now. We live in a plutocracy. I mean, I think one of the things that you're seeing in terms of Donald Trump, people say, oh my God, Donald Trump is appointing all these billionaires. Oh my God, he's putting billionaires in the head of education. We got Secretary of State. I don't think he's a billionaire, but he's from ExxonMobil. We have all these billionaires. And that's not to say that Obama didn't have billionaires as well. I remember the Secretary of Commerce was a billionaire. But what I'm trying to tell you is that what you're seeing is a manifestation of what America truly is. You're seeing with Trump, you're seeing a true representation of America. What Democrats like to do is kind of hide behind people who are not millionaires or billionaires, but they're just kind of behind the scenes doing the work. What I'm telling you is that the Trump administration is a true representation of what it means to be in America today, and that means to be in a plutocracy that is run by millionaires and billionaires. Now, when we talk about the interview, when we speak about Darity, when we speak about Professor Darity, one of the things that is so interesting to me, is how he broke this down. And I have always expected other professors, other black scholars to break this down. But I'm happy that I finally found an economist to kind of break this down. So, if Irony can, I want to go to that first clip, and let me just set this clip up for you. He's talking about education in this clip, and he's talking about the value of education as it relates to closing the wealth gap. Now remember that wealth is not income; it's not the same thing. So keep that in mind. Wealth and income are not the same thing. Too often we say, "Well, I have a good job. I don't know what you're talking about. I have a good job. I make good money. I'm okay." Wealth and income are two different things. And so in order to fix what's happening in the black community, we're going to have to take a crash course on exactly what's going on. Like, we need a crash course of what's happening, of how we got here, and then we need to lay out the prescriptions for how we can get out of here. So, if we can go to that clip, let's put it up on the full screen, if we could do that, because I want to go to that first clip first, that number one clip, because it talks to education, and it talks about education and wealth, because that's what we've been taught, right? Haven't you been taught? I mean, that's what I was taught all my life. If you go to school, if you go to college, you get good grades, that's what happens in your life. Good things happen. You build wealth. Eventually you catch up with white people, right? So, I mean, let's watch that clip if we can, and I want to come back and discuss it.
That if you take into account the socioeconomic status of a given household, there's really no significant difference in savings behavior between black and white households. And in fact, in some categories of income, black households actually have a higher savings rate than white households. So it's not the savings practices of black folks that leads to these huge gaps. The critical thing is, as you said, lineage. It's what you can receive from your parents and your grandparents. That if you take into account the socioeconomic status of a given household, there's really no significant difference in savings behavior between black and white households. And in fact, in some categories of income, black households actually have a higher savings rate than white households. So it's not the savings practices of black folks that leads to these huge gaps. The critical thing is, as you said, lineage. It's what you can receive from your parents and your grandparents. That if you take into account...
Okay, I just want to digest what he just said right there. What this says, what he's really saying to us, to you, to me, to African Americans, is all this stuff that you've been told, all of this stuff that you've been told about financial literacy, and the problem of African Americans is the lack of financial literacy. The problem that we have is that we don't know what to do with our money. The problem that we have is that we buy too much on shoes. The problem that we have is that we spend too much money. The problem that we have is that we're not good stewards of our households. And let me tell you, this is something that's been told to us by churches. It's something that's been told to us by politicians. It's something that's been told to us by every leader in our community. What he's basically saying to you in that clip is that that's not true. There is no data to back up this idea that the reason that African Americans are behind white people in terms of aggregating wealth. There's no reason at all to believe that has anything to do with stuff that we're doing wrong. He said we do save. In a lot of instances, we save at rates higher than white people, and we have less than white people. And this is, of course, in a country where a lot of people don't save. He's mentioned that before. But if you're looking at that, if you're looking at the fact that we do save, we do value education, then that makes the best case for reparations right there. That you can't just see the thing people always say about reparations is, well, that happened a long time ago. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you mean. You have opportunity now. What he's saying is that door has basically been shut in terms of the kind of opportunity that we do have. So what that means is that we can't do it like we used to do. That model doesn't work anymore. One of the things that I'm kind of tiring of is people who are going back and if I mention anything, people go back and tell me stuff about 1965 or 1955 and ask me about what did Garvey say. And you remember when Malcolm said this. Listen, I have a great deal of respect for all those people. But you don't understand that all of that stuff happened during a time where America was growing. So if you were a person who had a lot of money, it was a great time to be that person. If you were a person even who wanted to start a storefront where things were just being created, not perfected, where things these things were just being created, it was a great time to enter into that stage. But what happened is that while these big industries were being built, black people were free labor. And even after we weren't free labor, we were almost free labor. And even after we got into Jim Crow, even when you look at Jim Crow, what happens during that period is that a lot of the people who were attacked were black people who owned businesses. So even when you tried to walk through that little narrow door, you tried to move through it, you were squashed. White mobs came through, squashed. That's what happened. So that was the era, though. You can't do the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that you can't start a business or you shouldn't know how to start a business. I will tell you that starting a business costs, there was a report that said it cost like $30,000.
Hey,
so,
Yvette, do you have access to $30,000?
I don't. Do you?
No.
No. $30,000.
No.
Well, what if I want to do it? But what if I want to do it? I mean, I don't got $30,000.
Well, here's the deal. That's not just $30.
Start a business. Can I start a business by just going and filling out my paperwork?
No, that's $200. That's not starting a business.
But I got LLC paperwork.
That's not a business because costing a business means you have contracts, you have money coming in that's enough to live off of, maybe have a few employees. That's when you're making moves. Right now, you just have paperwork. That's like paying tuition and saying I got a degree. No, you need to actually do some other work.
So you say I'm just self-employed?
You just have paperwork. Now, I do have an interesting question from Facebook. not Facebook, YouTube. YouTube, a woman says, yeah, I have count them, 2 Ivy League degrees, and I am at the poverty level. Go figure. That's not supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to be that way, Yvette. You got 2 Ivy League degrees.
We're gonna have to go to clip 2. Because the clip number 2 from Professor Darity kind of answers her question. Because what we're going into, what we're trying to understand, what we need to understand is how are our black degrees measuring up against white wealth? Don't measure your black degree against another black person with a degree. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how does your degree, your black degree, whether it be from Howard, my alma mater, whether it be from Kentucky State, whether it be from Stanford, how is that degree measuring up against white wealth? So let's listen to what he has to say.
The idea is to be a tycoon. The question is, how realistic is it for anyone to get there? And the odds are low for most whites in the United States, extremely low. And they are similarly blacks, but extraordinarily low for blacks because we have a much greater range of obstacles in terms of wealth accumulation than whites. So one of the things I mentioned was that whites with a high school diploma or less, that is, whites who never finished high school, actually have a higher level of wealth than blacks who finished college and have a college degree. Similarly, whites who are unemployed have more wealth than blacks who are working full time. And it's actually pretty extraordinary. So here's what I would say: if you're a Black American, I'm not recommending that you don't try to pursue higher education or to improve yourself. What I am saying is, on average, those kinds of efforts are not going to put you into an equivalent place with a white person in America who might not even be as well educated as you are. It's not going to happen for most people. So the Beyoncés, the entertainers, the sports stars who make these extraordinary incomes, and that's a key term, incomes, it'd be interesting to look at what their wealth positions actually are.
Yeah. And it's real interesting.
I would argue that, maybe they aren't really symbols of success if you think carefully about their true financial position. If you look at how much debt they're carrying relative to the value of the assets that they've accumulated. The idea is to be a tycoon. The question is, how realistic is it for anyone to get there?
Did you hear what he said? Like, I just want to be clear that we heard exactly the same thing. Were we hearing the same thing? Did we have the same conversation? So if a black degree, if your degree is supposed to hold up in a fair world, it's supposed to hold up. You're in a meritocracy. Your degree is supposed to compete with somebody who's white who has a degree. But why isn't it necessarily doing that? So I want to talk about that. But first, if you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to subscribe to my channel. If you are watching this on Facebook, I want you to subscribe. Keep in mind that I have another Facebook page as well. Because this one I'm running out of friend space. So I want you to share the video, subscribe to my page, like my page, Yvette Cornell, like it on YouTube, and share the video. Share the video and like the video as it's coming up now. Just pop up there and hit the like button, because if you hit the like button, more people see it. So I just want to take a moment to say that. But here's a question that we have to ask. If the degree that you got doesn't necessarily compete with a white person who has a degree, or with the white person who dropped out of high school who has more wealth than you, then how much are you benefiting? The question becomes, how much are you benefiting? Are you by taking on that kind of debt? How much are you benefiting by taking on that level of debt? That is the question. And I had somebody during the break, what they asked, Armin?
Oh, they said if black people got reparations today, $25K per kid, per descendant of slave, it would be gone in under 6 months. I'd like to try.
I mean, this is the ignorance of it, right? Like we're gonna get to the solution because Darity actually proposed a solution. I don't want to go in depth in the solution, but it doesn't require just handing out black people money. But I remember one of the things that we discussed.
First of all, $24K isn't even that much money.
No, but one of the things that we discussed also was like making the government could issue payments to HBCUs and black people could go to HBCUs subsidized or free. That was one of the things that we discussed. But Darity, like I said, I don't want to talk about it right now. But if you want to talk about it, because we're going to continue talking about this subject on Wednesday, you can go to Tone Talks, which is Antonio Moore's page. Subscribe to Tone Talks, and you can watch the video there as well. And you can watch the entire video in its entirety, and then come back, subscribe to the channel, and come back here, and we can have a conversation about it. But at the end, he has a very specific plan for reparations that doesn't call for it's if I want to give you a hint about it, it's actually having giving kids some money at birth based on their economic how they're economically situated. That they can only get at a later date. But there are other ways in terms of education, in terms of health credits. There are other ways to give African Americans reparations that doesn't involve necessarily handing out checks. But if you want to do it that way to have money to start businesses, you can do it that way too. If you want to give us $50,000 at birth, then you get 18, 19, 20. Nobody can make you act necessarily.
I'll take free healthcare. I'll take,
and I don't even have to be free healthcare for everybody. Like, give me a subsidy. Like, give descendants of slaves a healthcare subsidy.
We don't live that long anyway.
Yeah, the mortality rate. Just give descendants of slaves a healthcare subsidy. Let's say like you're gonna have you're gonna put $2,000 into my healthcare account every month or something. Do something so I don't have to pay for going to the doctor 2, 3, 4 times or you have to do something. Or I get a tax credit. Let's say at the end of the year, when I go to file my taxes, I get a credit. I get a healthcare credit that everybody else doesn't get. So I mean, there are a lot of ways to kind of there are a lot of ideas out there about how this happens. Not all of those ideas necessarily involve what these people are talking about.
We don't have to give people cash. If you endow Howard with $1 billion, just give Howard $1 billion. Write a check, print money, government. Just put it in Howard's account. That will help a lot of Negroes.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do this. The thing is to understand why it has to happen. Like the thing we need to do is understand why this needs to happen. And one of the things we have to stop pointing to is people like, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's Jay-Z, whether it's Oprah, and there are a lot of good reasons for that. But the one of the good things during the conversation between Antonio and Professor Darity is that all money's not the same money. Okay, you have Bill Gates, you have Tim Cook over at Apple. All of these people are moving entire industries. Like Oprah's not moving an industry. Beyonce's not moving an industry. These are people who are paid to entertain you. So all money's not the same. But if we go to clip number 3, I think that clip kind of helps us understand the limitations of black wealth that exists, because part of the thing that happens is we don't understand what a business is. I hear people say all the time, like me and Irene were just talking about, like, I have a business. So we really believe that there are a lot of these businesses in the black community that exist, that everybody has a business. I know people with businesses. I don't know what you're talking about. So we kind of gotten this thing to where if I can print out a business card and file some paperwork, then I'm a business owner, and it makes us feel a certain way. But really, the only thing you're doing is you're kind of mimicking white wealth. You're not wealthy in of yourself. You're just kind of mimicking. You're just kind of mimicking what white people do when they're wealthy, or how they behave when they're wealthy. We could even mimic how they dress when they're wealthy, even though they don't necessarily want us to, because that according to them diminishes what they have to offer. But I think let's go to clip number 3 and let's watch it, and I'll come back and let's talk about it.
It's interesting too if you think about the value of businesses. So a business that might be anywhere between 50th and 100 on the Fortune 500 list, that is a white-owned corporation, will have more value in total sales than all black-owned businesses combined.
Yeah.
So you can take any single one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing to have a sense of celebration about apparent successes, but those successes are successes relative to the position of other black folks. They are not significant successes, for the most part, in comparison with the position of the white folks who have been who have become the most rich or most affluent in American society.
And you know, it's a true.
Many of these folks, not rich. They were rich when they were born. It's interesting.
So that's what that's what we're looking at. That's the landscape, people. That's the landscape. Everything that you've been told that is the landscape is not the landscape. People always say like, well, we have to go to war with white supremacy. Well, if you're going to go to war with anything, you better damn well know what the landscape is, or you're going to get slaughtered. So this is the landscape. You know, in terms of I mean, if you listen to what he just said in that video about white wealth versus black wealth, what you see when you go in that top, when you look at the top heads of corporations and the corporations they run and how much income, when you look at Jeff Bezos, what you see of Amazon.com is not only is he a billionaire, but he's amassing more and more wealth. Like, this is a guy who could buy and sell. What he's basically saying is that this is a guy who could buy and sell, like, all black businesses. So you could have one company that's worth more, one white company, take any company on the list, and it's worth more than all of these other black companies combined. And then we have black companies that fail most time after the second and third year. And the only reason why that happens.
Oh, hold on now. You said something that people might misinterpret. You said most black businesses fail after the second and third year. Most black businesses fail immediately. We're talking 90 or 88%.
Well, he said after year 2 or year 3 in the interview. So I'm going with what he said. I'm being very generous in terms of what he said in the interview. Like, they, after the second, third year, they're gone. They're
and that
finished.
means they haven't actually made. They might not have made profit. They might not have made profit.
And
for
the
first
problem
two.
is, you know what the problem is? Like, nobody ever tells the whole story. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do as black people. This is what we do as black people. Whenever there is a story.
Who called a business. And he's
it's not even like that. It's like we don't tell the whole story. Like, everybody shows up whenever somebody starts a business. What happens is that the root, everybody shows up and says, look at this great business this black person founded. Isn't this wonderful? But nobody shows up when the company fails. When the company fails, everybody goes quiet. And so what happens is that becomes a problem. And so you have to tell the whole story. Part of the problem in our community is that we want to support each other so much that nobody wants to tell the whole story. So we never do an autopsy. What we have to do is do an autopsy. Look at this black business that failed. Look at these 1,000 black businesses that fail. Look at these 90% of black businesses that don't have any employees. And let's talk about why that is. Let's talk about why that happens. And so we don't do that. We just say, well, we got to support them. But no, we have to understand why they're not doing well. And the reason why that happened is because they lack access to capital. They lack access to generational wealth. That is
even stronger than that. Not that they lack access to generational wealth. They're actually generationally poor. So, like, it's not that they come from, like, stable communities. It's like you come from cousins who are, like, working class people. Who don't have the $30K you need to get in the game.
It's not even just always working class people. You're lucky if you're a black person and you're a working class people, you did all right. I mean, that means you were able to stay gainfully employed. That's a good thing. I mean, that's not always the case for African Americans. So I think it's even deeper than that. What is the call-in? I can't remember the call-in number.
I'll track it down.
Track it down for me, because people are trying to call in. I think we got somebody on the line right now. You got a 310 number? You got a 310 number over there?
A few people. Hold on. Let me get in. Talk.
Okay. Find that 310 for me. So, what I really am trying to drive home today is, oh, Yvette, oh my God, oh, you're depressing me. Oh my God. I'm not trying to. Why are you internalizing this? Why are you having some kind of emotional reaction? I remember the people told me to stop you from chuckling in the background if you ain't got nothing to say. Hold on. But the thing that happens is that we have to get in the mindset of being able to being very confrontational in terms of the data. Like, and we can't live on. I had somebody on my page earlier today that said, "Oh well, I have a business. I have a business," and I'm just like, I don't think you do. But the problem is that we don't understand. We don't necessarily understand what a business is. We don't necessarily. And the thing about it is, even when I hear people talk about, when I hear my friends, and when I hear, people talk about this, it's very aspirational. Like, it's almost as if, like, black people don't want to have jobs no more. Like, black people say, I deserve better than this. I hear people talk about, even when I have the immigration debate, black people talking about, oh, I don't want to fight for crumbs. I don't want to fight for crumbs. So what do you? Since when does a job a crumb? I don't understand. Like, it used to be a time when we understood that we had to work. So when I was talking about the immigration debate, we just have to fight for crumbs. When I was talking about this, when I started talking about black people having businesses, and I say no. A lot of people who have business, these people are self-employed. A lot of these people are not like business owners. It's a difference. You don't have an employee. So what I found is that we have a misunderstanding about what this means, about what it means to be a business owner, and like we don't have any respect for like working 8 hours a day anymore. Like, it's almost as if, and I said this on Facebook, it's like we watch too many Jay-Z videos because he's on a yacht sipping champagne, so everybody wants to be on a yacht sipping champagne. And the thing about it is, even if everything were fair, you still be screwed. I mean, most of us would still be screwed, even if there was a meritocracy. Everybody's not going to be a millionaire. The majority of people still wouldn't be millionaires. Only a small number still would become millionaires. That's just that. Even if there was a meritocracy and everything was fair across the board, you would certainly have a wider number of black millionaires than you have now. You would have a large number, but everybody still wouldn't be a millionaire. So, when we can, like, I want to go to clip number 4. So that we can actually understand like how this happens and like who we should be listening to, because that's key. Part of the reason that we're here is because we're listening to all the wrong people who have been saying all the wrong things for 30 years. For so let's watch clip number 4 and go.
The imaging of affluence. And I think that one of the big points you make that's important is that imaging encourages people to think that racism is over, and that the kinds of disparities that we're talking about don't really exist. In fact, folks don't even try to look at the data half the time to try to see what's going on, because they're convinced, well, if you have a black president, if you've got an Oprah Winfrey, well, anything's possible for any black American to accomplish. But, folks don't think about the fact that even among white folks, there are very few people who actually become president, and there are very few people who have the kind of wealth that an Oprah Winfrey has. But proportionately,
yes,
there are far fewer blacks who have the type of wealth that Oprah Winfrey does than whites. And that's entirely because